UFC London. It's taking place this upcoming Saturday. We got a mammoth heavyweight showdown between Blaydes and Tom Aspinall. Of course, this fight has major implications for the future of the heavyweight division. Now, I will say this. I believe Tom Aspinall has the potential to be a major star in the sport of MMA, but even further than that, I believe he has potential to be the #1 combat sports athlete representing the UK. So this is a giant fight there. Other than that, this fight card is extremely stacked for my liking. I know sometimes we agree or disagree on certain fight cards. I hope we can all agree this fight card is stacked. I'm ready to go. We got an excellent episode lined up for you guys. You know how we do it here. We got timestamps lined up throughout the show. We're going to be doing a recap of UFC Long Island, and then we're going to jump into the UFC London fight card. We got a lot more than just that as well. I hope you guys are ready for a great show. Let's get to it.
The teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What is up, you guys? We are back. I hope you guys are all doing well out there. I know a lot of you guys are pumped up for this fight card that's on the horizon. I know I am. Obviously, you guys can tell that. UFC London, we will briefly brush upon it here. Some of the fights that got our hair standing up right now. The Blaydes versus Tom Aspinall fight. And need I say more? A big-time heavyweight showdown in the main event slot in London with Tom Aspinall having the type of potential he has and Blaydes being just a straight killer. Cannot wait to see that fight go down. The Hermanson versus Curtis fight thrown together recently. It's an exciting fight. Paddy Pimblett versus Jordan Levitt. How can you not be excited for this fight? Anytime a guy like Jordan Levitt steps into the cage, you got to be ready to go, and you can't be missing a fight like that. So, of course, Paddy Pimblett is a funny guy as well. So that fight just has such a great background, and I know a lot of you guys really want to see how that fight's going to go. Gustafsson making the return against Nikita Krylov, Molly McCann versus Hannah Goldy. Of course, Goldy, a girl that we've had on the show. We've had the pleasure to chat it up with her. We know Molly McCann as a character. Paul Craig versus Volkan Oezdemir. Ludovit Klein versus Mason Jones. Mason Jones showing to have a lot of potential. Ludovit Klein coming off a big victory. Diakiese versus Hadzovic. Nathaniel Wood versus Rosa. Makwan Amirkhani versus JSP. I love that fight as well. And then how about this one here? In the flyweight division, we got Mokaev taking on Charles Johnson. If you guys didn't know, there's a little bit of beef going down between these two guys. Both of them are very promising, up-and-coming flyweight fighters. It's an awesome fight. Herbert versus Nelson. And okay, the first couple of fights, they are what they are. Nicolas Dalby versus Claudio Silva. Dalby brings the fight. Silva, a longtime veteran. It's just an awesome card, all right? So we'll be getting to each and every one of these fights here very soon. We're going to jump over to the UFC Long Island recap here in a second. I really want to tell you how things went for me because I actually had a profitable night. Like I said, we had one official play and we hit. We dodged a lot of landmines. But if you guys could, first and foremost, please like this video for me. It means a lot to me. Hit that like button right now if you could. Subscribe to the channel if you guys have not already. And go catch me over on my social media as well. Go catch me over on my Instagram, I'm MMA Fortune Teller _. Go catch me on Twitter at the MMA Teller. I really appreciate you guys if you can go out and do that. Thank you. So you know how it goes here. We're working from the bottom of the card. We're sliding our way up to the top. Emily Ducote takes out Jessica Penne. We did have Jessica Penne to win this fight. We talked about how it was a close matchup, not really a fight that you would trust either fighter. You know, Ducote making her UFC debut. She's looked good as of recently, but let's not forget Jessica Penne had a little bit of a size advantage. She's been looking very good. with her return back to the octagon. She had some big time wins. Penne looked to have the grappling advantage on paper, but Ducati was chopping the legs down, stuffing takedowns very well. She handled business, and big props to her in her UFC debut. Dustin Stoltzfus takes out Dwight Grant. Was able to use some grappling in the fight. We talked about that type of potential. Thought Dwight Grant would have had more success in the feet and could have did better stuff in the takedowns. Another fight that I did not feel comfortable at all. Hopefully none of you guys were targeting Grant, or hopefully some of you guys made money on Stoltzfus if you found some value there. Dustin Jacoby takes out Da Un Jung. This was a start for my picks. 0-3 here. Dustin Jacoby gets that knockout victory over Da Un Jung. I thought that Jung actually looked pretty good up until the point that he just got clobbered there. And big shout out to Dustin Jacoby, who is just getting victory after victory and is becoming a major threat in the division. I was very happy to see him rebound with a little bit of a better performance compared to the one that he had before. Of course, there was some talks about the injury, and shout out to everybody that was bringing up the point that he did have a leg injury. You know, I appreciate you guys reaching out to me. Kind of missed that a little bit when we did the breakdown video, although we did talk about it all throughout the week. I was just saying that I remembered that Jacoby didn't mention why he wasn't throwing the kicks in the inside cage post interview, but yes, he did mention it backstage in the post-fight interview. Either way, Jacoby is a stud, and both fighters are studs in my opinion. I think Jung bounces back. Bill Algeo turns into a complete dog, avoids the submission attempts by Herbert Burns, and then just brutalizes him and just basically melted him and got the victory there. Big shout out to Bill Algeo. And there was another fighter coming up in a little bit we're going to be talking about that had a similar type performance. In fact, it was even a little bit more impressive. Not this fight here, although this was as well. Ricky Simone takes out Jack Shore. We talked about the value mostly being on Ricky Simone, with Jack Shore having kind of a higher line next to his name. I edged Jack Shore. I thought that he would have got the better of the striking exchanges, and I thought he would have did better in those grappling exchanges there. But you guys know I'm very high on Ricky Simone as well. In fact, I'm very high on both these fighters. But Ricky Simone is the fighter that really passed the test here and takes the momentum moving forward. He gets more respect next to his name. Big shout out to him for getting the finish there, hurting Shore on the feet with strikes, following him down to the mat, getting that submission. Big time victory for Simone there. Now we're talking some betting action here. This was the start of my first official play here. As I said, I dodged some major landmines. I knew I didn't want to touch a lot of these fights throughout the card, and there was one fight that I felt very comfortable with. It was a 2-team parlay, and the first leg of that was Punhalehi Seriano, who took out Dolce Lengambula. Now, this was more of a fade on Dolce, although I do believe Seriano's making strides, and we'll get to the write-up here in a second. Some points I pointed out why I really felt confident in this leg here. But this was Seriano all day and just absolutely brutalized Dolce on the feet, got the knockout victory. Lauren Murphy outgrinds Miesha Tate, really handled business, got the decision there. I think this is probably going to be the end of Miesha Tate. I don't know. Maybe she comes back for one more fight. Maybe I missed it. Did she hang the gloves up? I didn't see that, but Lauren Murphy wasn't really overly impressive to me as well. I thought it was actually a very below level type of fight. Maybe I shouldn't say below level, because yes, these girls can probably take out a lot of the lower level fighters in the division, but for the recognition that their names have, I was very disappointed in the performance that both of them put out there. In particularly Miesha Tate. We know she's up there in age. She had the long layoff. We know now that she's done. All right, Lauren Murphy still doing what she does, she's holding on, grinding, using her muscles and her strength. Decently well-rounded fighter. It was a hard fight to watch. You saw Miesha Tate. She's all beat up and bloodied up at the Yankee game. She went the next day, and it was a tough fight to watch. All right, in the next fight, Shane Burgos defeats Charles Jourdain. Again, I'm missing all these fights in my picture. I told you guys it was a very, very bad overall card for me here. I had Miesha Tate. I edged her. I had Charles Jourdain to win this fight. Now, a lot of people thought that Jourdain won this fight. Did you guys think that Jourdain won this fight? It came down to the first round. Jourdain had an absolutely phenomenal third round. Outstruck Burgos in a major way throughout this fight. But Burgos had a couple of takedowns, had some control time. I still feel good about that pick on Jourdain there. I thought that was the way to go, especially from a betting standpoint. At the end of the day, Burgos got the nod. I know a lot of people were upset. One judge had it a draw. How'd you guys score it? How about this fight here, man? Matt Schnell gets the victory. over Sumadarji in one of the greatest fights we've ever seen. How about Matt Schnell poking fun at the teller quite a bit, actually, after this fight? He knew that I didn't pick him. I believe Matt Schnell, maybe he pops in a little bit, watches the show, checks me out on IG, but he knew I didn't pick him, and we poked some fun. He went back and forth with me, and I got nothing but respect for Matt Schnell, and I was 100% rooting him on. I had no action on this fight. I wanted him to win the fight. I was just a little bit wary about how he would hold up on the feet. We saw him rocked, but everyone's been talking about it. He has that dog in him, and he prevailed at the end of the day, man. What a major victory for him in his career. I'm very happy for him. You can go check me out on IG, and you can see what we're talking about over here. Now, in the next fight, Jinglang Li gets the knockout victory over Muslim Salikov. That was another underdog that came through on this card here. Wasn't overly confident in Muslim Salikov, but I thought he would have got the better of the striking there, and it wasn't the case. Now, finishing off my two-team parlay, we had Amanda Lemos to take out Michelle Waterson. This was a fight I felt very comfortable with. Now, I didn't necessarily expect the finish to come the way that it did. I really thought Lemos was going to style on Waterson on the feet, whether it went to a decision for 3 rounds or if she got the knockout. Wasn't necessarily expecting a guillotine choke there. And we really dodged the bullet in the sense that referee did not see the tap there by Waterson. Thank God Waterson was a class act and admitted that she did the tap, because the referee was on the other side. He did not see it. If Waterson would have continued to engage, the fight would have continued. Lemos needs to make sure the referee sees that tap. That was a little bit of a lapse in her mental IQ there, but she is a stud. She has some things to work on. Against some of the upper echelon fighters, I think she could run into trouble with her fighter IQ and some different types of variables, but she's talented. And there you see it there. It was a 4-unit play, grabbed it at -125 together. And this was the play that I attacked on the card. Like I said, dodged a lot of landmines throughout this fight card. You see the submission right there. I really was fortunate to make this a profitable night there, like I said. So I feel grateful for that. Then in the main event, what a crappy way to wind down such an excellent card. Of course, Brian Ortega's shoulder pops out of place, and Yair Rodriguez gets the victory there. If you were betting on Ortega, it had to be very disappointing for you, because Ortega got the takedown there. Of course, it was a 5-round fight. We needed to see so much more before we really knew what was going to be going on there. But Ortega looked good, and I felt pretty comfortable he was going to end up getting the job done there. So I really feel for people that had money on Ortega and people that had money on Yair Rodriguez. Of course, there was still potential. He would have went out there and did his thing, but that was a great way for you just to snag up some money. And but a crappy way for the card to end, and unfortunate for a lot of people that I know that were at the fight card. It is what it is. Maybe they run that back. All right, so that wraps up UFC Long Island. Like I said, whew. But hey, we're making smart moves over here. We're not betting on every single fight in a major way throughout these fight cards. If we're not feeling confident with the value on these specific lines, we're staying away from stupid fights. Hopefully you guys are making the same decisions. For those of you guys that are following me for all my picks here, I try to hammer these all nice and neatly. Occasionally, you're going to have a disastrous fight card like this. I mean, think about it. We're doing a fight card every single weekend. Give me a break, guys. And if you were out here hammering every single fight from a betting standpoint, I'm sorry, that's on you. You got to be strategic and smart about what you're doing out there. All right, guys? So please, bet responsibly, make intelligent decisions. If you want to profit in the long run, you have to be smart about what you're doing. All right, guys? So don't just put that on me. If you're not even working with me, if you're working with me, you had the one right up, and you guys know the game plan that we had for this fight card. If you're not really working with me with my official plays and you're just tuning into the show, you got to rely on yourselves a little bit more to be disciplined and make those smart decisions. And I hope you guys are. I'm rooting for all you guys out there. All right. Oh, the Black Rifle Coffee is kicking in. And we're jumping into the first fight of the fight card. Let's go. Nicolas Dalby taking on Claudio Silva. Nicolas Dalby. Let's kick things off with Dalby. Dalby, in my opinion, is a fighter that really hasn't lived up to the potential that he has. He's an explosive athlete. He's decently well-rounded. Definitely drops the ball here and there, especially as of recently, right? Coming off a loss against Tim Means. We've seen Tim Means kind of starting to diminish a little bit. The D-Rod fight was a big win for him. Some people didn't really feel that he did enough to deserve to get the nod there. The Jesse Ronson fight, this was a loss now. It was overturned due to a drug test on Jesse Ronson's part, but at the end of the day, Dalby dropped that fight there, so let's be clear about that. losses to Zach Cummings, Peter Sabata, Carlo Padarsoli back in the day. It's been a while since those fights. Some of the bigger victories that he's had throughout his career, of course, the Zaleski Dos Santos fight, going to a draw with Darren Till was a big feather in his cap back in the day. That's when he was really starting to burst to the scene in the UFC. Claudio Silva, on the other hand, we're talking about a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, a legit black belt here. He's up there in age. Claudio Silva, the way that he strikes in the feet, he's so relaxed. He kind of reminds me of a guy that's in a street fight, a guy that feels just very confident, knowing that he's just a better fighter. He's getting in a little scuffle with somebody, and he's just kind of relaxing, ready to slap you up a little bit, and before he knocks you out. The problem is that he's not fighting just bums on the street. He's actually locked in there with legit UFC caliber fighters here. So I'm not really crazy about that lackadaisical approach. If he's able to get the fight down to the mat, of course, he's always a threat. As far as his jiu-jitsu game goes, not only is it decorated outside of MMA, but in the MMA world, it's carried over. He's had a good amount of submissions that he's pulled off, a variety of different submissions. I definitely feel that he's live to get a submission here if this fight goes down to the mat, especially with a guy like Dalby that gets reckless and crazy at times. I could see Dalby making a mistake and getting subbed. But on the feet, I expect Dalby to be way more explosive, more technical. He's just going to be the more prime fighter here going into this fight. We see how they match up. Although Dalby is getting up there in age as well at 37 compared to the 39 of Silva, which he's really almost at that 40 mark. You take that into consideration. I feel like Dalby has taken better care of his body. He looks to be in better shape. He looks to perform better from a physical standpoint when he's in the cage. I give that edge to Dalby. I expect Dalby to land some explosive shots. I think that Dalby will be a little bit more physically strong in those clinch positions when they lock up, when they push up against the cage. You also got a 3.5-inch reach advantage for Dalby. He's a little bit more of the naturally larger man. I do lean Dalby to win this fight. Now, we'll take a look at the betting line on this fight. Dalby's going to be almost a 3-1 favorite, right around a minus 280. I'm not crazy about that line. I think he gets the job done, but I think that that's a little bit of an inflated line in my opinion, just because Dalby has had some hit or miss type of performances, and he's had performances like the Ronson fight too, where he's looked good and he's completely hit a wall. There's just been some funky things that have gone on with him in his fights, but when he puts it all together, like I do feel that he's going to do in this fight, he's probably going to put things together here, and he's going to look really good and get a big victory here. But he's not necessarily a fighter that I would put all my eggs in a basket on, in my opinion. So I think the value is more in Silva, but I think Dalby's going to get the job done. And as far as how I see the fight going, does Dalby maybe get a finish on the feet? Claudio Silva, these two losses that he's lost as of recently against Kraus and McGee, both via decision. He has a long track record of being durable. I would say I'll take Dalby by decision. I would lean more so by decision. You guys, if you're looking for a new sports book, you know the routine. Reach out to me. If you're ready to make that jump, I'll give you my referral link. And if you sign up through my referral link, you'll get a bonus in your account when you deposit. And I'm going to give you my exclusive bets for free for the card there. So just take note of that. If you guys are interested, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You could also reach out to me through my email, MMAfortuneteller@gmail.com, or of course my social media platforms, Instagram and Twitter. That's below. All right, guys, reach out to me if you're interested. It's a great card to jump on. I'm going to give you some winners. You're going to get that bonus, and you'll have some nice money in your account. And it's easy to pull out. It's easy to put right into your own bank account. So reach out to me. I'll give you the details. Mandy Bohm taking on Victoria Leonardo. A little bit of a lower level fight here taking place in the women's flyweight division. Both women really haven't proven anything up until this point, but fortunately for these women, one of them is going to get their hand raised this upcoming Saturday, so that's a good thing for them. Mandy Bohm, of course, making her UFC debut against Ariane Lipski. That was almost a year ago, which is pretty crazy. That fight seemed like it wasn't that long ago, but it was almost a year ago. The German fighter made her debut and really got outclassed by Ariane Lipski, who Lipski is a fighter that's hot and cold. We know she has some good sub skills. She's a little feisty on the feet, but she definitely has holes in her game, and Bohm wasn't able to figure that puzzle out. One thing I did like about her, even in that fight, making her debut, she shows to be a little bit, I don't know if I would say cocky, but comfortable on the feet. a little bit, she's confident on the feet, and I think that could actually play well for her in this fight against Leonardo, where she probably will have more success. She covers up, she uses pretty good feints and whatnot with her striking, and I could see her getting the edge in the striking department over Victoria Leonardo, who's a little bit more clunky, in my opinion, a little bit more meat and potato type of girl. You see her here doing her little... yeah, let's not judge her too much here. You know, she's might just be putting in some cardio, so we don't really know what that's about. But, you know, not the most explosive strikes in the bag there. Victoria Leonardo coming off 2 losses to Melissa Gatto and Manon Farot. Of course, Farot is just a stud, and she's one of the top up-and-comers, so we don't judge her too harshly there. But the loss against Melissa Gatto, we know that she's a stud jiu-jitsu player, and she's had some success in the octagon, but as of recently coming off a disappointing loss where she really wasn't able to implement her typical game plan. But against Leonardo, she was absolutely able to implement her game plan of pulling her down to the mat and just styling on her with her jiu-jitsu, just transitioning all over Leonardo's face. If this fight goes down to the mat, I think that I'm going to favor Bohm more so as well. And overall, I'm going to favor Bohm just to get the better of Victoria Leonardo here. She's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage on the feet. She's much more rangy. She's an inch taller. I think that she has shown more flashes of potential the more you break down tape on her. And I can see her just being a little bit better everywhere this fight goes. Not necessarily a fight that I'm extremely confident in. Again, this is lower level women's mixed martial arts in the flyweight division at that too. The flyweight division, the weaker division in women's mixed martial arts, in my opinion. You know, you pull up the line right here and you're looking at Mandy Bohm right around a -160 with the comeback on Leonardo at +135. I think that's an accurate line. That's where the line probably should be. I edge Mandy Bohm to pull off a decision here. I think that she probably edges a decision here and gets the job done. Jai Herbert taking on Kyle Nelson. This is actually some good matchmaking here from an entertainment standpoint. I think that these guys are going to put on a show. Kyle Nelson has only won 1 of his last 4 fights, but he goes out there, he brings the fight time and time again. He can crack. We know that Jai Herbert does the same thing. Jai Herbert, a little bit more of a polished striker, in my opinion. He's a very, very fluid striker, has some very good boxing skills. Kyle Nelson, a guy, like I said earlier, a guy that can just more so crack, but he's decently well-rounded with his overall striking as well. He's a strong guy. I expect Jai Herbert to be a step ahead in those striking exchanges, but at the same time, Herbert is very willing to engage in wars. And when you talk about like Kyle Nelson, when you talk about a guy like Kyle Nelson who can crack, he is going to have that potential to land a big shot in this fight. So I would not be shocked in the slightest if Kyle Nelson cracks Herbert here and we see some type of fight that takes place similarly to the Trinaldo versus Herbert fight, where it could be going back, forth, and the fight can go any type of way. But overall, yes, I do think that Herbert's going to get the job done here. Herbert's going to actually have a 6-inch reach advantage. Another fighter going into his matchup, his or her matchup, with a substantial reach advantage here. Herbert really has some nice footwork. I know he's been working on his overall game as well. He's been in there against some warriors since making his debut. You know, coming over from Cage Warriors, he had that fight with Trinaldo, which if he would have slowed things down, he could have potentially got the victory there. They'd eventually get knocked out. Renato Moicano, a very underrated fighter. At least if some of you guys have been sleeping on him, he's a dangerous man. Got subbed there. But again, working on his overall grappling and whatnot. Goes out there, knocks out Worthy in his next fight. Just looked very, very skillful on the feet there. And then in his last fight, got knocked out against Ilia Topuria. We know the deal with Topuria. Topuria is a beast. So Kyle Nelson, on the other hand, coming off a knockout loss to Billy Quarantillo, where he was engaged in a really eventful fight. They were really going at it. They were going tit for tat. Billy was getting the better of him. And late in the fight, Billy cracked him with a shot. And it wasn't just your typical knockout where you hit him and you just put him out. It was almost like that delayed type reaction where Kyle kind of wilted there. He got cracked hard, but it took him a second and he just collapsed. So you got to wonder that the mental of Kyle Nelson coming into this fight here. I happen to believe that Kyle Nelson's probably tough as nails and it's going to be coming in here and just throwing bombs, looking to get a knockout, and not worried in the slightest about the loss that he just took. Kyle Nelson has been looking to be in phenomenal shape coming into this fight. No question about it. I have a feeling from what I'm seeing that he is as motivated as ever. He knows this is do or die for him here, and Herbert's going to give him some opportunities to land that big shot. Remember now, he had a really, really big knockout victory over Marco Polo Reyes where he cracked him with the big shot. He's had some big knockout victories in the regional scene. He can crack, okay? I'm telling you guys now. I am going to take Jai Herbert to win the fight. Like I said, I think he'll just be a little bit more silky smooth with his overall striking. Herbert almost a 3-1 favorite here. Another similar line here, a -280 line on Herbert. Fights taking place over in his neck of the woods. If it goes to a decision, the crowd will be going crazy for Herbert. He should be the more skillful boxer, and he probably gets the victory here. And I'll say that one way or another, I think that we might see a knockout in this fight. I could see a knockout going either way, but I think Herbert probably more likely to get the knockout victory or the TKO victory later in the fight. One of the fights I'm most looking forward to on this fight card, if you guys didn't know, you're going to know here in a second. Muhammad Mokaev taking on Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson makes his UFC debut, the former LFA champ. A guy that's 11-2 as a pro. He has some boxing experience as well. He's an extremely confident fighter. You guys know about Muhammad Mokaev, one of the hottest prospects to ever bless the game. This kid has so much potential. His record as an amateur and as a pro, of course, being 6-0 as a pro as well, it's been pretty ridiculous. And if you didn't know, there's some beef heating up between these two guys here. So Muhammad Mokaev, he posted a picture of him holding an AK-47 in his homeland of Dagestan, saying "See you in London," which, if you ask me, I don't have a problem with it. A little tacky, but whatever. And Charles Johnson was just letting him know that, he's an inner G, whatever that means. I guess he has some G inside him. But, he's from the Lou. He's from the Lou, so he don't play. And, if you know your stuff in America, St. Louis, one of the more dangerous cities in America. I think it was the 2019 murder capital. And he's just letting him know that he's been around some real hitters, and flashing a gun on IG ain't going to really do nothing to him. And I like that energy he's bringing. I like that he seems to me like the type of guy that's not going to be punked out like that. He's not going to be intimidated, and it's not going to affect his performance. He's going to come in here and look to implement his game plan. Now, the problem that he has is that Muhammad Mokaev is extremely well-rounded. He's going to have the wrestling and grappling advantage here. And on the feet, now Muhammad's also showing that he's extremely dangerous there. In his UFC debut, he lands a flying knee. This kid is just so promising, but also just take note, he's going to have a substantial wrestling advantage here. He will drag this fight down to the mat if things get a little hairy for him. On the feet, he's very confident. He's very squirmy on the feet. He's dipping and dodging. He's just dodging big shots, but at the same time, obviously he knows what he's doing to an extent, but he flirts with danger there, but he'll look to counter strike you off those misses. I think that it's going to be playing with fire with a guy like Mokaev, who can land a big shot on the feet as well. And obviously, I think you guys know which way I'm going with this fight. I am taking Muhammad Mokaev to win the fight. He's only 21 years old compared to the 31 on Charles Johnson. I don't care. Muhammad Mokaev, like Charles Johnson actually said in his tweet here, I believe it was here, right over here, you've been groomed since you was 12 to play in a cage where a ref can save you. And if she gets out of control, they're going to save you or whatnot. And yeah, he kind of hit the nail on the head there. Mokaev has been trained. I think he's been trained from before 12. I think he just said 12. I think from when he was younger. He's been groomed to be the greatest flyweight cage fighter of all time. The greatest flyweight mixed martial artist of all time. That's what he was groomed to be. And I think you're going to see the difference in a guy that's just a scrappy, confident fighter in Charles Johnson. Mokaev's going to get the job done here. I wouldn't be shocked if Charles Johnson hangs around and takes that decision loss. I would be shocked if he lands that big shot. I would be shocked to an extent, but I know he has that type of ability. Maybe Johnson lands a big shot, could hurt him there. Hurt Mokaev there. He's had some big knockout victories on the feet before. In fact, coming off 2 knockout victories over in the LFA scene, pulling off an anaconda choke over Carly as well. I don't see something like that happen. Mokaev's grappling is just too ridiculous. I got Muhammad Mokaev to win the fight. We take a look at the betting line. Mokaev's up to the 5-1 favorite type of range, almost a -500 right now. You would have to throw this with the parlay if you feel comfortable with it. And just understand that Mokaev, although he doesn't have a lot of pro experience, he has a ridiculous amount of amateur experience. He's extremely well-rounded. This is a fun fight. We're going to see what Charles Johnson's made of. Obviously, it's a pretty high line at a minus 500. You would have to throw it in with the parlay, or you're taking Mokaev to get the finish there. Or some of you wild dogs out there, you're going to be taking a stab on Charles Johnson. I'm not necessarily leaning towards that direction. I'm sure there'll be a couple of you guys out there. I think Mokaev is going to get the job done here. Makwan Amirkhani taking on JSP, Jonathan Pearce. A fighter that's really been shining with his wrestling abilities as of recently. Quite honestly, in the featherweight division, I think that JSP's been putting his wrestling together in the cage just as good as anybody. Now, of course, he had that very, very disappointing UFC debut against Joe Lozon. I think that was a fluke. He got clipped. Obviously, Lozon followed him down to the mat and was able to finish him off there. I think that he just got put out, and it happens. It was a learning experience. I've been very impressed with what I've seen from him in the last 3 fights, dominating victories over Kai Kamaka, Omar Morales, and Christian Rodriguez in his last fight. But really, really shining with the wrestling. We know the deal with Makwan Amirkhani. Makwan, a well-rounded fighter. He's dangerous on the feet. He'll throw some exotic wild attacks on the feet at you. He can pull off some wild exotic submissions on you. Loves to pull off that anaconda choke. He can pull off a variety of subs if you're lacking there. Now, I do think that Makwan's going to have that possibility to land that wild shot, similarly to what Lozon did. If he can land that shot, clip him, hurt him, and follow it up, maybe pull off a sub there. There's that type of realistic possibility for sure. But I would lean more so that JSP is going to get the better of these wrestling exchanges, and there's a high probability that he's going to grind Makwan out here and get a decision victory. That's without a doubt the most likely scenario when you break down tape on these two guys. Something that I love about JSP, the more you dive into what he's about, he is a guy that is extremely confident in himself, and a guy that puts in the work. You see what he says here. I don't care what your VO2 max is or what your stats are. It's all heart. It's all determination and dedication. Stay consistent on your dreams. That is something that you cannot underestimate. These fighters that are just extremely confident in themselves and just continue to grind it out and just have full belief in themselves are the fighters that really thrive in the sport. And you see him over here putting in work at Fight Ready MMA. I like this fight. It's an exciting fight. I think that JSP is going to get the job done. But again, there is a realistic possibility that Amirkhani can land some type of wildness. We've seen him do it before. We've seen him do it a couple times. He's a dangerous man. Now, JSP will be about 2 inches taller than him, but will actually have a half inch reach disadvantage with Amirkhani with those long limbs. We'll take a look at the betting line at this point, and you will see JSP is right around a minus 205 up to that minus 235 range, a little bit over a 2-1 favorite. We'll keep an eye on that line, but I do expect Jonathan Pearce to get the better of the wrestling exchanges on Makwan here and grind out a decision victory. Well, you'll probably have a very disgruntled crowd over there in London rooting for Makwan. Nathaniel, the prospect Wood, taking on Charles Rosa. Now, is Nathaniel Wood still the prospect? Coming off 2 losses out of his last 3 fights. I don't know how much of a prospect he is. He's 28 years old now, about to be 29. I don't think he's no longer a prospect. I think now he just needs to prove himself as a guy that can hang around in the division. I think he's a decently well-rounded fighter, a decently talented fighter. Coming off a loss against Casey Kenny, we know that Casey's the real deal. And Wood was hanging around at times in that fight. He had some moments where he was showcasing some of his skills. He's fluid on the feet. He's light on his feet. He can land some boxing and whatnot. He can land some kicks and whatnot as well. I think that he probably gets the better of Rosa on the feet. Rosa kind of has this weird style where he's on the back foot, kind of uses karate type style at times with his kicks. He's kind of retreating and circling, and he'll try to bombard you with some type of attacks. It doesn't necessarily look the best for the judges' scorecards. I think that Nathaniel Wood will kind of dictate the striking a little bit better. I think that Nathaniel Wood has the potential here to control the grappling as well. I think that Nathaniel Wood could be the fighter that gets more control time on top and whatnot. Charles Rosa is a polished and decorated jiu-jitsu player. I believe he is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, actually. Just got his 2nd stripe. And you see him over here with some true warriors. You see Waggy. I bumped into Waggy in the sauna a couple of times at LA Fitness. This guy's a very tough guy, a PFL fighter. He surrounds himself with some tough dudes. There's no question about it. Charles Rosa is a tough dude. I've met Charles Rosa as well. Former, I don't know if he still is doing that. He was a culinary cook over in the South Florida area. Really cool dude. I think Rosa is as tough as nails, but he's really been having a tough time putting it together as of recently, only winning one of his last 4 fights. The loss to TJ Brown, the loss to Damon Jackson, the loss to Derek Minner. That was a tough one for him. And he had that split decision victory over the since let go Justin James. I think that Nathaniel Wood should be able to get the job done here. He's younger. He's more in his prime. Now, also take into consideration Nathaniel Wood's bumping up here to the featherweight division. Charles Rosa will be the more larger man, the more naturally larger man here, 3 inches taller, but actually having the same reach as Wood. Nathaniel Wood, down in the bantamweight division, was a fighter that was very lean. So I think it was the right move, making the jump up in weight. Obviously, he was having some problems on the scale down there, and I think it was probably the right move for him. I think that he'll fill in fine to the division. I think he gets the better of Rosa. I think he can use some control time. And I think if Rosa's going to get this job done, Rosa's going to pull off an armbar or some type of submission off his back that he's going to explode into early and lock it in like we've seen him do before. We saw him pull off a beautiful submission victory. Got to pull that up real quick. Against a fighter that was going out there subbing everybody, and we haven't seen him in a long time, Manny Bermudez. He went out there and subbed Manny Bermudez in the first round. Manny Bermudez was going out there subbing everybody around that time, and you see him. He was cut after that fight, and since had a victory over Bruce Boyington. Maybe he gets an opportunity in the near future. But at the end of the day, we are taking the prospect Nathaniel Wood. He is up to a 5-1 favorite over Charles Rosa. That is a very high line. So you see people really not having any type of confidence in Rosa. Just understand that Rosa is a scrappy individual that is always live to pull something wild off. I don't necessarily see it happening here. Nathaniel Wood should get the job done. And that's the route I'm going to go. I'll take Nathaniel Wood via decision. Marc, the Bone Crusher, Diakiese taking on Damir, the Bosnian bomber, Hadzovic. Damir coming off a very big victory. A much needed victory where he was able to take out Yancy Medeiros. He really chewed up his legs in that fight. Damir looks to be in phenomenal shape going into this fight. I really believe this will be the best version that we see of him. So it makes this fight a little bit interesting because on paper, I do believe that I got to give the edge to Marc Diakiese. He's a guy that was a very, very promising prospect back in the day. He's had some tough outings, but he seemed to really ground himself as of recently. He's been showing to have good fighter IQ as of recently. In his last fight, went in there, just used a strictly wrestling type of strategy against Borishev, a guy that's a very decorated kickboxer or a very talented kickboxer fighting at a Team Alpha Male. That was a very smart move because he probably would have lost if he just sat in there and tried to strike it out with Borishev. And Diakiese has good striking as well, so he could have been boneheaded and did something like that. But again, showing elements to his fighter IQ. Diakiese, before that, losses to Rafael Fiziev and Rafael Alves. Now, the Fiziev fight doesn't look as bad now. We know that Fiziev is just an absolute beast. We've known that anyway, but the Alves fight, that was a fight that I faded him. That was an official play of mine on Alves as a dog, and he went in there, hurt him, strapped up that guillotine choke. Diakiese's had some really lackluster performances. If you remember his fights against Drakkar Klose, he was controlled against the cage the entire time. His fight against Nasrat got styled on. The Dan Hooker fight. Victories over Duffy, Venata, and Borishev now, so not a lot of big names under his resume. That's the problem with him, in my opinion. Even if you go back to the victories he had very early in his career in the UFC, these are guys that are not UFC caliber fighters. Frankie Perez, Timu Pakalin, and Sajewski. I mean, these are not guys that really ever hung around. Frankie was up there in age too, Frankie Perez. He had some UFC fights under his belt, but I think there's a realistic possibility that Damir goes out here and lands some heavy leg kicks and makes this a very closely contested fight. But I got to go with my gut. Diakiese brings in a 3-inch reach advantage. He's an inch taller. He's a little bit more of the naturally larger man. He's a talented striker. He should be able to hang with Hadzovic on the feet. And he's been showing different elements with the grappling and whatnot. We've seen Hadzovic go out there and really not have an answer for the wrestling at times. If you remember, Christos Giagos mopped the floors with Hadzovic in that fight. So, of course, Moicano just played with him down on the mat as well. And then he had a victory over Yancy Medeiros. I don't know if Yancy Medeiros is just, smoking blunts with the Diaz brothers, just hanging out and whatnot. So it's hard for me to judge that fight. Diakiese is going to be a 3-1 favorite going in here. It's a little bit of a high line. I favor Diakiese via decision to get the job done here. Maybe some value on Damir there. Be skeptical, be wary, be careful. Ludovit Klein taking on Mason Jones. This fight was thrown together rather recently. Ludovit Klein was supposed to be taking on Ignacio Baja-Mendez, and he had an opponent change here. Now, just take that into consideration so you can kind of understand who Klein was training for. Baja-Mendez, a very rangy striker. Mason Jones, a good striker as well. A little bit more of a well-rounded arsenal. Ludovit Klein, he's coming off a big victory where he took out Devontae Smith. It was a close fight. It did go to a split decision. I actually thought that Klein definitely did enough to get the job done. It should have been a unanimous decision. I would say it was his best performance, but of course, I don't think he was going to top that knockout over Shane Young in his debut. But it was a very, very well-needed victory after coming off 2 losses to Nate Landwehr and our own Mike Trezano. And both of those fights, Landwehr and Trezano were really able to kind of nullify his explosive striking and kind of wear on him and drag him into deep waters. I think that Mason Jones has the potential to do something very similar. Mason Jones is a fighter who's been in there with some explosive athletes before. Now, there's been times where he's been in there with those types of fighters and he hasn't got his hand raised. Of course, he had that loss to Mike Davis. Mike Davis is absolutely no joke. He is a fighter that is just like a stealth bomber. He's under the radar. We've had the pleasure of chatting it up with him on the show. But he's a fighter that just doesn't stay active. But he's a guy that could really, really put it together. And Mason Jones did drop that fight. But besides that, he's been looking very good. A former Cage Warrior stud. Coming off that victory over David Onama. And that fight, he was able to get the job done. And we know that David Onama has really shown to be a very good fighter as well. A very promising up-and-comer. So that was a big victory there. Of course, the fight against Alan Patrick, that fight didn't get to last that long, but we know what was going to happen there. The fight against Mike Davis, I think that he showed, even though he didn't get the job done, he showed that he's a well-rounded fighter and really has some solid tools in his arsenal. In this fight here, he'll be 3 inches taller, although they'll both have the same reach. I have a feeling that Mason Jones will be able to avoid that big shot from Klein early. And I think that Mason Jones will be the fighter that looks a little bit more fresh in the later rounds and will be able to get the job done. Now, I will say this. Ludovit Klein is looking to be in phenomenal shape going into this fight. I mean, he is absolutely chiseled up, but that's not necessarily something new. He goes into his fights carrying a lot of muscle. He is explosive. He'll throw a couple spinning attacks at you. He has a heavy head kick. He has that unorthodox type of striking, and he gives guys problems. But I need to see more from him before I'm going to back him in a spot against Mason Jones, with all signs pointing to Jones being fully ready to go for this fight. That's the word. Klein, putting in a full camp and whatnot and coming off that big victory, I think there's some potential for him to get the job done. But I can't back him until I see a little bit more than the victory just over Devontae Smith, who's been struggling a little bit as of recently anyway. We'll pull up the betting line here, and you will see that Mason Jones is a hefty favorite. Now, I find that pretty interesting. A minus 350 line, Mason Jones, who's stepping in on short notice here against Ludovit Klein. Ludovit Klein, we'll just call him Cludovic. We'll combine them together. But Cludovic, at a plus 260, he's an explosive athlete. Let's see. Klein right now, 27 years old, a lot of room for growth. Both these guys, 27 years old. Both guys are promising fighters. I see more potential in Mason Jones, and I just think that he's the more well-rounded fighter. I see more promise coming from his way. I say Mason Jones gets the job done. He'll mix in some wrestling and whatnot, maybe get some takedowns, make things ugly in the clinch and whatnot, but he'll thrive in the later rounds in this fight. I think that Jones should get the job done via decision. I absolutely love this fight. Paul Craig taking on Volkan Oezdemir. Paul Craig, we need to get some clarity on Paul Craig first and foremost. There was a report that he's looking to retire by the end of the year, which I felt was so disappointing. I think that Paul Craig is just a great addition to the light heavyweight division. He's such a phenomenal grappler, but he's been working on his striking throughout the years as well. It's just a very disappointing announcement when that was made. I hope that's not the case anymore. Maybe we'll get some follow-up on that throughout the week. 16-4-1 as a pro, coming off a big submission victory over Nikita Krylov. That disgusting, at the same time, beautiful victory over Jamal Hill, where he put him in the chicken wing, pulled his shoulder out and whatnot. Looked great in the rematch against Hua. Styled on Antigulov. And then what? That was the split decision draw against Rua the first time around, where he should have got the job done. Anyways, he's been putting things together. He's looking to be better on the feet. Now, I will say this much before we get into Oezdemir. Paul Craig, I was fading him in his last fight. If you guys remember, I did have Nikita Krylov. That was a solid night for me overall in that event. It was a profitable night, but we did lose this play here. We lost that play against Paul Craig. And I would take Nikita Krylov in that spot all day. I said it in the write-up, and I said it when we looked into that fight. The only way he was going to lose is if he got caught in a submission early in the fight when they were nice and dry, and he made a rookie mistake. And Krylov did that. And I don't want to take anything away from Paul Craig, because Paul Craig has the ability to make fighters make those mistakes, and he has the ability to capitalize on those mistakes rapidly, fast. I mean, the way he can throw up a sub is so beautiful with his size. And he's going to have that ability to sub Volkan here. If this fight somehow goes down to the mat, he's going to have that ability to easily pull off a sub against Volkan. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a couple takedowns on Volkan Oezdemir too. We've seen him working on his offensive grappling. I was going to say, basically the reason why I faded him though is that when he's fighting these upper echelon type of fighters in the division that could really strike and that are very physically strong and that could avoid going down to the mat, he's going to run into trouble. And that's what I thought was going to happen in the Krylov fight. That's what was happening with the limited amount of time that fight lasted. Krylov was getting the better of that fight until that happened. I could see a guy like Volkan Oezdemir easily handling business if he sticks to a game plan or completely avoids the mat and makes this a striking affair. I've been back and forth on who I want to pick to win this fight. I was almost just about to change it up to Paul Craig, because I feel like if he gets this fight down to the mat, he definitely can have some success there. And he has that awkward type of striking where he can make things ugly and kind of hang on you and just mix everything up very well. I'm not going to do it, though. I'm going to stick with my gut and my initial pick, and that is Volkan Oezdemir. I know Volkan's been having some roadblocks, coming off 2 losses. Lost to Magomed Ankalaev. A lot of people feel he's the future champion of the division. And the knockout loss against Yuri Prochazka, who is the champion. Before that, victories over Rakic and Alir Latifi. The Rakic one was debatable. I'm going to give Volkan another chance here. He's only 32 years old. He's not that old, almost 33. I mean, he still has time. Craig, a guy that's been flirting with retiring from the game. I think that Volkan can avoid that submission. And if he does, he handles business. I think there's a more likelihood that he avoids that submission. Of course, Paul Craig live for that sub there. And that's the way I'm going to go. I think if Craig gets the job done, he has to pull off the sub there. Not necessarily the only way, but I'm feeling more favorably for that type of scenario. Again, we're seeing different wrinkles and the skill set of Craig every time he goes out there. But Oezdemir at a -150 with the comeback on Craig at +130. I think that's a very accurate line. I like that. That's kind of where I capped this fight. Maybe -140 on Oezdemir with like a +125, +120 on Craig, but it's pretty accurate. If we're going to say the line's off, I mean minusculely off, if that's even a word, minusculely. I like this line here. I'm going to lean Oezdemir, and I think there's potential for Oezdemir to get a knockout. I know it's been a while since he's been pointing at the watch saying there's no time. I think that there's a realistic possibility he lands a big shot on the feet and gets a knockout as well. Let's not forget, Oezdemir was a guy that was going out there cleaning clocks. No pun intended, if that even makes sense. He was cleaning clocks out there, pointing at his wrist. He was no time. I mean, you remember the knockout over Misha Serkinov, Jimmy Manoa, had some knockouts early in his career in the regional scene, but these 2 knockouts that he had over Serkinov and Manoa, they were quick first-round knockouts, and it really bursted him on the scene. The knockout over Alir Latifi, I mean, he has power in his hands. Let's not forget, his bread and butter is his striking. I'm going to go with Volkan Oezdemir, taking Volkan to win the fight here. I love this matchup here. Molly McCann taking on Hannah Goldy. The UFC knows exactly what they're doing. This is such a perfect fight. You have Molly McCann at her home country on a major stage. You throw in a looker like Hannah Goldy, who is not really up to par with her overall skill set, but she's tough. It has all the makings to be a great fight. This is a perfect making right here with this fight, as well as Molly McCann's teammate Paddy Pimblett. We'll talk about that in a second, but perfect matchmaking. Hannah Goldy, she left me on scene in the DM section on IG. I'm assuming she probably wasn't happy about a little video I made. A lot of you guys probably know about that one video. A couple people in the MMA circle probably didn't like that one video that were friends with her, whatever. Just making content. It is what it is, but I'm assuming that's probably why. But a lot of you guys know that in the near future, I'm trying to get something brewing again with my interviews and with the live show again. And I was reaching out to some old people I had on the show. If you guys remember, we had Hannah Goldy on, and she was taking some edibles before the show. She could barely remember her name as I was talking to her. And I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm being serious. She actually was really kind of forgetting where she was. She even kind of admitted it if you watch the interview, but nothing wrong with that at all. I do the same once in a blue, right? You got to relax, enjoy yourself. She probably trains hard. She was nothing but a class act. She was very sweet on the show. And she took the time to come chat it up with me. So nothing but respect to her there, but obviously doesn't want nothing to do with the teller at this point in time. It's all good. It's all good. She's going to have her hands full against Molly McCann. Molly McCann, when she comes in with Paddy Pimblett, they come in, they tear these cards up in their hometown. Molly McCann's boxing is very, very above average for women's mixed martial arts. She has real pop in her hands. She can brutalize women there. She'll bloody them up. We saw her just pull off a beautiful spinning elbow knockout over Luina Carolina. That was a big victory. Before that, she went into a brawl with Ji Young Kim, a brawl that really spent a lot of time on the feet, and she was able to showcase her toughness and her striking abilities. Losses to Lara Fritzen and Atalia Santos. The Santos fight doesn't look bad at all in retrospect. We know how good she is. Molly McCann working on her overall skill set. I don't think Hannah Goldy is the type of girl that's really going to exploit Molly McCann's grappling. Hannah Goldy is very physically strong. She has that bodybuilder type of style, the way that she lifts heavy weights and whatnot, but her fluidity in the grappling department and the wrestling department is not up to par. And in fact, she's lacking there, but she's extremely tough. She won't give up. Her boxing is very below average, in my opinion. She's going to get bloodied up and pieced up on the feet. Like I said, you have an above average striker in McCann, and you have a below average striker in Hannah Goldy. Hannah Goldy has a nice body kick, a nice left body kick that she'll whip to the midsection. It's powerful. That's about it. Her boxing has just not evolved. She doesn't have that natural fluidity. She's a girl that got into MMA very late, and I expect Molly McCann to style on her. Both women 5'4". Molly McCann with a 1-inch reach advantage. It's not something you see all the time when Molly McCann's locked in there. She's not typically the more naturally larger opponent. I don't even know if you want to call her the more naturally larger opponent, but she usually is at a disadvantage in the size. So she's coming in here at the very least at the same size. I think all these aspects of the fight point to the direction that Molly McCann should get the job done. Again, though, not wishing any type of ill will towards Hannah Goldy. I think that Hannah really is a sweetheart, and she's a good woman, man. She takes care of her kid and whatnot. She's always posting on IG with her son. She's a class act, and no shade thrown her way, but I think Molly McCann's going to get the job done here. We're going to check the live betting line. Molly McCann is up to that 4-1 favorite range, up to that -400 line, and not really shocked to see that, to be quite honest. Not really shocked. Like we talked about, there's some real aspects of this fight that point to Molly McCann getting the job done. potentially even getting a finish here, bloodying Goldy up, maybe a TKO stoppage, or maybe Goldy goes to a decision loss, but she's all bloodied up and it's an onslaught that was put on her and the crowd's going crazy. I could see something like that. We're going to see a show in this fight. And if Goldy's going to pull something off, she really better have been working on her wrestling. Maybe she can drag this to deep waters and get some control time. I don't see it. Molly McCann's been showing some good development there. I got Molly McCann to win the fight. Nikita Krylov taking on Alexander Gustafsson. Gustafsson making his return to the octagon. Let's be clear, only at the age of 35. I know he's been dabbling with this retirement talk on and off. He's making the comeback here. Yes, he's coming off 3 losses, but he's only 35 years old. And Gustafsson at one point in time was one of the more talented fighters that we had ever seen perform in the light heavyweight division. Nikita Krylov, on the other hand, I think that Nikita is one of the more underrated fighters in the division, and I think he's a fighter that has struggled to put everything together, or at least from a production standpoint. I feel like he's a very talented fighter. He has that karate, martial arts background from way back in the day. You see him light on his feet at times in the striking department. He can land some nasty kicks, head kicks. He can throw them all at you. His grappling has shown to develop. We've seen him go out there and grind out fighters like Johnny Walker, which isn't saying the most, but showing that he could have a game plan, go in there and exploit a fighter's lack of grappling and lack of takedown defense. As of recently, that's kind of been the story on Alexander Gustafsson. It all started with the John Jones fight. His grappling looked horrible in that fight. He was taken down and mauled. The Anthony Smith rear naked choke submission, he looked horrible down on the mat. And then in his last fight, just gets pulled off, gets armbarred by one of the greatest submission artists ever in Fabricio Verdun, but still just constantly having holes down in the mat. And then that fight was up at the heavyweight division as well, just to take that into consideration. But I wouldn't be shocked here at all if Nikita Krylov looks to really use some of his grappling that he's developed over the years. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he has some success down in the mat. Might be the path of least resistance there. Unless Gustafsson's been sharpening some things up, I think Nikita Krylov could have an edge there. Krylov is a guy that has spent a substantial time over at American Top Team throughout the years. I know he's bounced around, but he has put a lot of time in over at American Top Team and has trained with some of the best fighters in the world. And he's had some of the best coaching out there. So yeah, I don't take that lightly for sure. And I think that this is a fighter that has been developing right in front of our eyes and still has so much potential. I know he's coming off a fight where he made a very big mistake going down to the mat with Paul Craig getting subbed. He'll learn from that. The loss against Magomed Ankalaev, we're talking about a guy, again, who a lot of people feel is the future champ. Before that, takes out Johnny Walker, went to a split decision loss with Glover Teixeira. We know now, especially, that Glover Teixeira 3 years ago, forget about being past the hump. He's been in the prime of his career there, and he went to a split decision loss there. Some people thought that he kept that fight pretty close. It was a close fight, pulling off subs over OSP and whatnot. He's a good fighter. How can we take Alexander Gustafsson in a spot like this? I feel like we need to see more from him. Supposedly he's motivated and he's looking to make a strong return here, but I feel like I need to see something from him before I could just, jump on the train here. At least Nikita is a guy that's been active. He hasn't lost any type of confidence. He hasn't dabbled with retirement. And another thing too, take into consideration that Nikita Krylov is only 30 years old. So we talked about him putting in that work at Top Team. He's still learning. He's still becoming a better and better fighter. And he's a fighter that is a specimen. He's a phenomenal athlete. And you see what he's looking like as of recently. And we talk about him bouncing around the different gyms, putting in work at Tiger Muay Thai. He's not the largest light heavyweight fighter. And I kind of like that because he has good movement. He's quick in there. And we know that Gustafsson's a guy that has good footwork and whatnot, but Krylov should be able to hang with him there as well. Now, this fight is a very tricky fight. Again, I don't think anybody can say they know for sure what kind of Gustafsson's going to show up. I just don't see how anybody knows what kind of Gustafsson's going to show up. If you tell me a prime Gustafsson shows up, I would take Gustafsson in this spot. I would take Gustafsson in this spot. If you tell me Gustafsson's going to go out there and look as good as he's ever looked or perform and have the capabilities of the best Gustafsson that we've ever seen, I think the prime Gustafsson would take out a prime Krylov. But Gustafsson just has fell off a cliff, and I don't know what we're going to see from him quite honestly. I mean, he's been married as of recently. I don't know if he has kids or what's going on with that. We know that his wife, I mean, I'd try to pull up a picture for you guys if we see anything here, but unfortunately for you guys, I don't see nothing. I don't know. Sorry, guys. Uh-oh. Does he have a new one? I don't know. I can't read Swedish, but, you remember when he proposed in the cage, man, and his wife is something else. So you see him there. He does have some kids and whatnot. So maybe some distractions outside the octagon. Oh, there she is. Oh, you guys might be in luck here. There she is. So, yeah, I mean, she's obviously a looker. I mean, he has some distractions maybe outside the octagon. I don't know exactly what's going on. I'm taking Nikita Krylov. I could put more faith into him right now at 30 years old and just a well-rounded fighter. Give me Nikita here. Let's go take a look at the betting line. Nikita Krylov is almost a 2-1 favorite here. So people doubting Gustafsson because we know that we haven't seen a very a guy that looks like he has us all in the sport of MMA as of recently, and a guy that's been lacking definitely ever since that Jones loss. It's been pretty brutal. So and a guy that has not been active. So I think that's what we see in the reflection of the line there. Again, now Krylov coming off that quick submission loss, he's motivated. Give me Krylov here. So I guess this is the fight of the night. Somehow this is the world we live in. This is the fight of the night. Paddy the Baddie Pimblett against Jordan Levitt. Two interesting characters to say the least. I mean, I wish you guys could explain to me, if anybody wants to hit the comment section up, why Paddy Pimblett has exploded into this I don't know if I want to say star, but why has he had all this early attention, is on the track to be a star in the sport of MMA? I don't get it. I mean, the hair is kind of funny. He's an interesting fella. He kind of looks like a cartoon character, the way he talks and all that. But why, I don't see anything that's necessarily that interesting from him. It's comical and whatnot, but not anything up to the level of like a McGregor or whatnot. Not to say he's even hit that level, but I don't get why he's even getting this type of traction. I don't have a problem with it. I found it more entertaining the more I tune in, and it's made me want to watch him more and more the more I see everybody else so interested in him, because there's a lot more riding on these fights. When he's throwing down. So, I've been well versed with Paddy Pimblett way before he's made his UFC debut. He's a fighter that everyone's known about for a long time. Former Cage Warriors champ. People were waiting for him to get an opportunity in the UFC. I think his striking defense is lacking in a major way. His head is sitting there on a tee quite often. And as he fights some of the bigger names in the division, he will get knocked out. If he would have fought Ilia Topuria, there was a little beef going on there. Topuria will knock him out. So luckily for him, the UFC gave him a proper matchmaking here. They know they have a guy they can make money on, so they're throwing him in there with a guy in Jordan Levitt, who is not a threat on the feet to say the least, but actually is pretty polished up with the grappling. But Paddy is as well, and they feel that Paddy should be able to handle business down there. Paddy should have the striking advantage from an offensive standpoint. I think he has more power in the strikes, of course. Levitt really hasn't shown anything on the feet. This was a post I made a while back that really made some noise. Levitt expects riots when he twerks on the crowd after beating Pimblett. So after he beats Pimblett, he's going to go out into the crowd and just twerk on them, just twerk on their faces, just twerk all over them as he works his way out, maybe chugs a couple beers. I think that Levitt's a funny character, a very strange dude. Nobody knows what the deal with him is. Everybody wonders. He's a guy that's comical to me in the same way that a guy like Pimblett is. These guys aren't megastars, but they're funny guys. Perfect matchmaking here. I am going to edge Paddy Pimblett to win this fight, of course. Again, I think that this is good matchmaking by the UFC to give him another victory. I'm interested to see what Paddy looks like on the scales. Remember now, this guy Paddy gets up to like 205, which is ridiculous. Cutting all the way down. Down to 155. We're talking about cutting 50 pounds within a short period of time. That's not good for you. We will see Paddy Pimblett knocked out in the UFC. You mark my words. If he stays active, he will be knocked out. He was almost knocked out by Luigi Vendramini, was almost put out, and then he eventually got the finish there himself. But Rodrigo Vargas exploited his grappling. I'm interested to see the grappling exchanges. I think that Paddy may even or should probably get the better even down there as well. Paddy, a little bit of the more naturally large man. I expect him to be a little bit more physically strong, even though Levitt is very deceivingly strong. And remember, let's just bring up real quick that knockout victory that he had over Matt Wyman when he slammed him on his head, although Wyman's a fighter that's was way past his prime. The loss to Claudio Puelles. Claudio has shown he's a talented fighter. And then 2 victories there, taking out Matt Sales and Trey Ogden. The Trey fight was close. Paddy's probably going to get the job done here. Let's see how this thing takes place. Who do you guys have here? What are your guys' thoughts on this fight? You guys got to let me know what you guys think about this fight here. I think Paddy gets the job done and everyone's going crazy. I hope he pulls off a finish. I think that would be fun. Not sure if he does. And then from a betting standpoint, Pimblett, like a minus 250 up to a minus 275, a pretty hefty favorite. You gotta factor in if this fight's even somewhat close, the judges are most definitely going to favor towards Pimblett's side. The crowd will riot if it's a close fight and he doesn't get the nod. Levitt won't get the nod if it's a close fight. And at the very least, I could see this fight maybe playing out close if Pimblett doesn't have good success, and Pimblett's still going to get the nod there. There's a lot of signs that point he gets the decision victory here. I don't know if he goes out there and subs a guy like Levitt, who's underrated on the ground. I think Pimblett via decision, or maybe Paddy rolls the dice and really goes to knock him out on the feet. That would be exciting if he did that, if he really wants to become a star. But I don't know if he does that. Let's see what he does. I got Pimblett to get the job done. Jack Hermanson taking on Chris Curtis. Action Man steps in on short notice after just throwing down, a week and 4 days ago up to the date I'm recording this Monday morning. It was an official play of mine. You guys know that it was a big time play of mine, a 6-unit play that I grabbed at very close odds. Curtis went in there, handled business. Curtis, in my opinion, didn't look as good as I would have expected him in that Vieira fight. He was breathing a little heavy. I mean, he was putting out a high output, but I thought that he could have did a little bit better. I don't know if that was also to the fact that Vieira's been developing and becoming a better fighter, and he is a stud athlete. I mean, he is a real true pro. I don't know if it was that or, Curtis, he's had some big victories where he was able to shine early, knocking out Brendan Allen and Phil Hawes. Those were early victories. We saw him go deep in this fight, and he did dig deep and he got the job done. But Jack Hermanson's a guy that will be in your face. Jack Hermanson's a guy that is well-rounded. Hermanson has the ability to pull off flashy, quick subs early in the fight. He has an arsenal of submissions. We've seen him attack the legs. We've seen him attack a couple different submissions. And I think if this fight gets down to the mat, he could definitely pull something off down there. As far as his striking goes, it's not the most polished, but he's really just an active, brutal athlete, if that makes any type of sense. Like, I was cage side for the Hermanson versus Jacare fight, and take into consideration this was a lot closer to the prime of Jacare's career, or at least a more primed Jacare rather than the end of his career. Don't picture him at the end of his career. This was a good fight for Jacare and Hermanson at the time, and Hermanson went out there and was mixing things up and really putting the volume on Jacare out there. Now, I know Jacare and Curtis are two different fighters, but I'm just saying that Hermanson has the potential to make this an ugly fight on the feet and really see who could dig deep. I think Curtis will be the cleaner striker. He has some really clean boxing. I love the way he mixes the body attacks in with his strikes. I mean, he'll attack the head and then dig to the body. But I could see Hermanson hanging strong there and whipping his own kicks and just hanging on Curtis and clinching and throwing all types of ugly, nasty attacks and making this a fight where whoever's going to dig deeper is going to get the job done. With those other variables I talked about with the submission arsenal of Hermanson, I think this is a very close fight. You also take into consideration that Hermanson was training for a big-time fight like this against Darren Till, a similar type of fighter, or more of a striking-based fighter, whereas Chris Curtis was just in there. And he was training for a fight. He was in good shape, so he went right back to the gym and whatnot. It depends how you look at that. But he was just in there. He really seemed like he was breathing heavy in that fight, and he had to dig deep. You got to wonder where he's at mentally. He's been really just pushing the pace with his career. Obviously, he's got this late splash in the UFC. He's trying to make a quick name for himself at the age of 35. He didn't have that opportunity in the octagon early in his career like he should have. Something to me is just saying Jack Hermanson gets the job done here. So I am picking Jack Hermanson. I know he's coming off that split decision loss to Chris Curtis's teammate, Sean Strickland. Before that, he took out Edmund Shabazi and using his wrestling. Jack Hermanson has very underrated wrestling. Recently we saw him in a grappling wrestling match with Khamzat Chimaev, where he showed to be pretty decent there. But in the octagon, we've seen him time and time again using his wrestling. He's for a European fighter. I know times have changed. It's not necessarily like it was in the old days, but for a European fighter, he's a very, very solid wrestler. I could see him hanging on Curtis, getting this fight down to the mat, maybe here or there. And that could also look good for him. I'm going to pick Jack Hermansson to win this fight. Hermansson, the larger fighter here, the more rangy fighter, 3 inches taller, 2.5-inch reach advantage for the Joker. The Joker's 34 years old, still a little bit younger than Curtis. Both these guys have a wealth of experience. We take a look at the betting line here. Hermansson's at even odds with the comeback on Curtis at -120. Monitor that line. Wouldn't be shocked if we see some movement one way or another and someone take over that favorite role. I like Hermansson here. Give me Hermansson. Fights taking place in Europe. Hermansson is a beast, man. He's a Viking, and I think that he's due for a big win. You guys, if you're looking to work with me for my exclusive bets, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll give you my pricing. This is a great fight card to work with me. I'm telling you guys right now, I have some official bets that I'm putting together as we speak that I feel extremely confident in. I know this is going to be another profitable event. This event's going to be a profitable one. Do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'll give you my pricing. Hit me up on my email at mmafortuneteller@gmail.com or shoot me a DM on Twitter or Instagram. This is the card to do it. I'm telling you guys right now, this is the card to do it. So after all that stackedness that we just talked about, the stackedness of the card, it's so stacked. All right. After all those awesome fights we just talked about, we get to top things off with the Curtis Blaydes, Tom Aspinall throwdown and a heavyweight main event showdown. I'm so excited for this fight. This fight has been on my radar for quite some time. I think that Curtis Blaydes is a true test to the potential of Tom Aspinall. We're going to put Tom Aspinall to the test here. Curtis Blaydes, can we quickly go over the resume of Curtis Blaydes? We already know that he's one of the most dangerous I shouldn't say grapplers, I guess you could say that, but ground and pound artist. This is one of the best wrestlers in the heavyweight division. When he gets on top of you, you take in his wrestling abilities with his size. When he gets on top of you and then the power he has, it's devastating. And he's coming off a knockout victory on the feet against Chris Daukaus. Take a look at his losses throughout his career. You're only going to see two men's names. Francis Ngannou, which he lost to twice, the current heavyweight champion of the world. And then you got Derek Lewis, who caught him with that uppercut, okay? Other than that, Curtis Blaydes just simply does not lose, all right? He goes out there and he dominates. Ground and pounding guys like Alistair Overeem, Shamil Abdurakhimov, Junior Dos Santos, getting victories over Alexander Volkov. We could talk a little bit more about that fight here in a second. The Chris Daukaus fight, I do want to mention that although he looked very good in the feet and got that knockout there, Chris Daukaus was coming off a knockout loss to Derek Lewis relatively soon to that fight. I believe that Daukaus should have took more time off. So just understand that. But you do like to see the fact that Curtis Blaydes' striking is coming around and the power is transferring on the feet as well. He's a true heavyweight, a real true heavyweight. And he's going to be the test for Tom Aspinall. If Tom Aspinall goes out here and passes this test with flying colors, man, I mean, the potential will be, forget it with Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall, he's a heavyweight fighter that moves like a middleweight fighter. His boxing is very polished. His footwork is beautiful to watch. And he's showing different elements in the grappling department, going out there, pulling off submissions against fighters in a variety of ways, pulling off these tricky submissions. The straight arm lock that he just pulled off against Volkov, the rear naked choke over Arlovsky. Of course, he hurt Arlovsky first. What he did to Sergey Spivak, just going in there and just clowning some of these guys like Jay Collier, just went in there and finished him, and Alan Budat proved that those guys were just not on his level. And that's what you want to see from a superior fighter. I want to see how this fight's going to go because I am extremely high on Curtis Blaydes. So, I mean, this is an absolute clash. This is an absolute clash here. From a physical standpoint, Curtis Blaydes at 6'4", an inch shorter than Tom Aspinall, but he's actually going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. And Curtis Blaydes is going to be the more naturally thicker man, the more naturally larger man by a little bit, in my opinion. Tom Aspinall, a decently trim heavyweight with his size and whatnot, which works good with his style. Like I said, he likes to be light on his feet. He likes to really use his skill set. He's not going in there to impose his size and will on you. He's going in there to outclass you with his skills. All right, so how do I see this fight going down? I think that Tom will get the better of the boxing and striking exchanges. I think that if Aspinall is going to have a great deal of success in this fight, he will have to stuff the takedowns consistently of Blaydes. This is a 5-round war. And I think that he should be able to do that. Now, if you remember, Curtis Blaydes versus Alexander Volkov, that was a fight that went deep into the late rounds. And Curtis Blaydes, although he dug deep and got those takedowns, Volkov was decently defending them and kind of getting back up to his feet. And we know that Volkov is just a very long fighter with those, those long limbs. It's hard for a guy like that to get back up, and a guy that doesn't have a wrestling background. Tom Aspinall to me is a guy that will be more fluid, and I could see him eventually getting back up to his feet if he's put in those positions. And I think that he'll have some real good success if he's able to get back up. And you see Blaydes breathe in heavy. I could expect to see Aspinall start to tee off and land some big shots there. I wouldn't be shocked to see Aspinall pull off some type of ridiculous sub again. I mean, he's been pulling off these weird type of subs, and there's been some rave reviews about his submission skills. So maybe if this fight goes down to the mat, if Curtis pushes that takedown, maybe he gets snatched up with the sub as well. And I also think there's a realistic possibility Blaydes can get on top and really land some big time ground and pound and bloody Aspinall up and expose him, or not even necessarily expose him, but just show once again the skill set that Blaydes possesses. Let's not overlook him. I think I see a variety of different ways this fight could play out, but I do lean that Aspinall will be the fighter that rises to the occasion here and will get the job done. I am going to pick Tom Aspinall to win this fight. I think if this fight goes into the later rounds, I think Aspinall will show that he's a fighter that has a good gas tank, and he'll be the fresher fighter, the fighter that's lighter on his feet and will thrive in those striking exchanges and land the cleaner shots and could probably get a finish on Blaydes. I expect them to maybe bloody Blaydes up, swell him up. We've seen Blaydes swell up a lot through his career. We've seen the eye shut. We've seen a couple different things like that. I could see Aspinall doing something like that as well. I like Tom Aspinall to get the job done. I'm going to say Tom Aspinall finishes this fight. In one way or another, he has a lot of different tools in his arsenal. He's constantly surprising us. I think Tom Aspinall is going to come through and get the job done. Right now, he's a minus 135 favorite. He opened up as a slight underdog. There's been a lot of line movement on him. Curious to see how the line moves. Does it keep going in his direction, or does it start to tilt back towards Blaydes when people start to see how big of a man he is and start to recognize the skill set that he brings to the table? So people might be overlooking him as well. I think Tom Aspinall gets the job done. You guys got to let me know who you guys have winning this fight. I really want to know your guys' thoughts in the main event. Please hit the comment section up below. Who do you have winning this main event? So that wraps up the card. First and foremost, I appreciate every single one of you guys that tuned in through the whole show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I really did. Love breaking down fight cards like this that are just intriguing top to bottom. As I said, this is the fight card to work with me. If you guys are interested in doing that, I feel very, very confident in where we're going with this card. Other than that, you guys know I got to give you something as we part ways. And I think it has to go back to something that we started this video out with, which is you guys should not be slamming every single fight throughout these cards. If you're slamming every single fight throughout all these cards, I don't see any way that you're profitable long term. I do not see how you do it. You need to be very, very selective in the bets that you target, that you're slamming. If you're telling me you bet on every fight, but you're putting a little bit on every fight, but you're really going in on the ones where you have that edge, that's how you do it. All right, guys. So just understand that. And again, I know that my last fight card was not my best overall picks as far as every pick goes. Just understand that we're doing this every single weekend. Of course, we're going to have one random fight card like that. It is what it is. All right, guys, if you take note of your official picks, write them down before every card, and you'll see, you're not going to be perfect every single time if you're doing this consistently for years and years. And again, how lucky I was to, I shouldn't even say lucky, how smart I was to dodge all those bullets and stick to the script and make a profit on that card. That's what it's all about. I hope you guys are doing the same thing. Hope you're all profiting out there. Hope you guys are all being smart with your bankrolls. Hope you guys are not blowing them and you're making smart decisions. I truly mean that. All right, guys, I don't want to see any of you guys making dumb moves out there. So be smart about what you do and make sure for this upcoming card, you lock in your official plays, your bets on the spots where you see an edge where you feel very, very confident in a specific player. You see some type of edge from what we talked about or from what you done research on. But don't start slamming every single fight pick that I give you. Don't say, oh yeah, the teller picked this guy and this guy and this guy, so I throw my account at it and I have money in my account. The game is complicated, all right, guys? The game is complicated. Make sure you're up to par and you're handling the game. We got to be a step ahead of the game, and we got to have that extra money in our pocket when it's all said and done as we sit back and enjoy these awesome fights. All right, guys? Catch me on Instagram this upcoming weekend. I'll be all over Instagram. This is the big fight card, and I will be all over Instagram. I'm going to try to get on the live. All right, guys? MMA Fortune Teller _ Love you guys. Signing out. The Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA Fortune Teller. Yeah.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The Teller. The Teller. The Teller.